All right. Let's go back to Jack and see if we have any more questions.
So I hate to discriminate, but we have another math question, unless we have something.
There's two of them. Lest we forget that there are two of them, and only,
That's true.
only one of me.
True.
Unless we have something that you'd like to tell us about science, we can jump into this math question.
No, I would love to give Becca the opportunity to answer the quadratic question.
Okay, so why and when is it appropriate to use the quadratic formula?
That's a good question. Is the question on? Okay, the question's on why we would use the quadratic formula to solve a quadratic equation, I'm assuming. Okay. Let me give you, I'm going to see if I can't pull up some examples. Actually, let's do this. So, all right, I'll just demonstrate this myself. All right, so there are quadratic equation. Let me first explain what the heck that is. A quadratic equation is something that has a degree of 2, meaning a squared. There is the highest power in the equation or function is a power of 2 that's on your variable. So this right here, y equals x squared, is the most basic quadratic equation that we have, and there are a lot of different forms of quadratic equations. One form is called factored form, and I'll show you. This is kind of the basis of what factored form looks like. And factored form is really nice because solutions in quadratic equations are also our roots. And so a factored form, you don't need to use the quadratic formula because if you can get it in factored form, you can use what's called the zero product property to find your roots. You can actually kind of just see what your roots are if you're in factored form. So no need for quadratic formula when your quadratic equation is in this form. There's another form called Vertex Form. And it looks like this. This is a useful form when we're graphing because the vertex is represented by the coordinates hk. And solving this type of quadratic equation can be done by undoing or just isolating x. What you might notice here or isolating the variable. What you might notice here is that there is only one variable present in this equation. And because there's one variable, we can isolate it by using our inverse operations. So again, no need for the quadratic formula. When a quadratic equation is in this form, general form, this is the form it must be in order to use the quadratic formula. Let me I'll pull up, instead of writing it, I'll pull it up real quick, I'm sure. Quadratic, I don't know why it's disappearing. Okay. So the quadratic formula was actually derived by isolating x when the equation was in general form. Now, we don't have to do all of these complicated algebraic steps every time. We just jump to the very end and plug in our coefficients. And that's what we're doing when we're using the quadratic formula. Now, so we can use it anytime that the quadratic equation is in general form, like this up here, this ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. We can use it anytime. However, we must use it in the case where we have imaginary roots. Actually, take that back. You can have imaginary roots for vertex form, but it's particularly helpful if we're in general form and the roots or solutions end up to be imaginary numbers, which if you're working with quadratics, hopefully that's familiar to you because I could talk about that for a while. And then also it's really useful to use if you have some messy numbers as your solution because you can't easily, in that case, put it into factored form like this one again on the top here. So long answer, we'll put it in a short way, is as long as it is in general form on the bottom, this one, then you can use the quadratic formula to solve your quadratic equation. All right.
Yeah, I like that you explain all the different forms because I think a lot of times students are like, why do I have to learn all these different forms? But some are just more easily translated if they're written, like you mentioned, Vertex Form. Like you can just quickly look at it and see what's happening, whereas like another form, you might have to like think about it or rewrite it in some other way.
Exactly. And the quadratic formula is meant to save us time. It might not seem like it, but
Right.
it's meant to save us time so that we don't have to go through all of those steps that you saw on my screen to isolate the variable. So that's what's nice about it.